Hello everybody. Today is our first class of half yearly session of Advanced English class 7, and we were studying Jane Eyre since our first monthly, and now we will be continuing Jane Eyre, the rest of the chapters, and we will start with chapter 4 this time. Okay, can you say it? Open chapter 4, and the name of this chapter is A New Life. So now we'll be reading about the new life of Jane Eyre. So in the last chapter, we read that she moved from Lowood School and she came to Thornfield Hall as a governess. She got a job and she was the governess of Adelaide. So now we'll be reading that how her new life is going at Thornfield Hall. Let's start. During the next few months, I led a calm but uneventful life in the company of Mrs. Fairfax and Adelaide. So now she is describing her new life at Thornfield Hall as calm but uneventful. So it kind of seemed boring to her that there was no exciting thing happening with her at Gateshead, at Thornfield. Mrs. Fairfax turned out, as I had expected, to be a placid, good-natured lady. So she was living with Mrs. Fairfax and Adelaide at Thornfield, and she thought that Mrs. Fairfax will be a calm and well-behaved lady, and she turned out to be someone like that. She was quite calm and she was well-behaved. Adelaide was a lovely child. She had been spoiled and indulged, but as she was committed entirely to my care, I was soon able to mend her ways. So, as she was the governess of Adelaide, now she is describing Adelaide as a spoiled child, as someone who was allowed to enjoy. Adelaide was such kind of a child. But as Jane was the governess of Adelaide, so she was kind of, although she was a spoiled child, but Jane was soon able to control her with her guiding. She became an obedient, though not particularly bright pupil. So, with her care, with her guidance, Adele became an obedient child, but she was not a very bright student. Okay, she also soon became very attached to me. So as we all know that Adele did not have her mother with her. So Jane was the governess of her, and soon she kind of though it's not written here, but we can understand that she also felt the need of a mother. Okay, so she kind of very soon got attached to Jane because she was kind to her. Okay, I was not discontented but grew restless and began to dream of a wider and more exciting world that lay beyond the confines of Thornfield Hall. So it was a kind of calm and quiet life of Jane, as she did not have a very pleasant life at Lowood. So compared to that, it was a safe life. It was a comfortable life that she was leading at Thornfield Hall. But it seemed boring to her. She kind of got bored very soon at Thornfield Hall, and she was kind of hoping, she was expecting some excitement in her life, and she could understand that within this area she could not have such joy or excitement. Okay, so she will have to go beyond this. While walking down the corridor of the third story, I often heard the weird laughter repeated. So, in our previous chapters, we read that she heard weird laughter and noise when she went to the third story. So, now she is again hearing such kind of sound from third story. I heard eccentric murmurs also, which were stranger than the laugh. So not only she heard the murmur, not only she heard the laughter, but she also heard the murmurs. Okay, and it was stranger than the laughter. There were days of silence too, when no sound was heard. So it was not that every day, every night she used to hear such kind of sound. Rather, there were some days when she did not hear any sound from there, and it was all silence. Was it really graceful who was responsible for the peculiar laughter? I asked myself. So she was wondering that is it graceful really who was making such kind of sound, such kind of weird sound? She was asking herself. Somehow I could not relate Grace's down to earth appearance with the strange laughter. So she was kind of could not connect this laughter with graceful because she was very much down to earth as a person. So Jane was wondering how such kind of a person can make this kind of sound. I sometimes tried to draw her into conversation, but she was a woman of few words and answered my questions in monosyllables. So sometimes Jane kind of tried to know from Graceful that is she the person who makes such kind of sound by making a conversation about it. But Graceful was such a down to earth, such a soft spoken person. She was a woman of few words, and this is why she used to answer in one word, in monosyllables. The other members of the household, John and his wife, Leah, the housemaid, and Sophie, the nurse, were decent people. So the other people who used to work at this place, they were also very decent people and who are unusual to make such kind of sounds. But I longed for more stimulating company and conversation. So the people were very decent and well behaved at Thornfield Hall, but Jane was kind of expecting, she was looking for a person who was full of excitement, who can be the person to make a conversation, to make a fruitful conversation. She was kind of looking for such kind of a person at Thornfield. October, November, December passed. One afternoon in January, Adelaide having been given a holiday on account of a cold, I found myself loitering around the house with time on my hands. So after October, November and December passed, in January there was an afternoon when Adelaide was given a holiday because of having cold, and then Jane kind of got some time for herself and she was wandering around the house. Mrs. Fairfax wished to have a letter posted. So I seized the opportunity to set out on a 2-mile walk to Hay to post the letter. So as Jane was free, she did not have any work that day. So Fairfax requested her to post a letter for her, and Jane took this opportunity and she kind of had a walk of 2 miles on her own to post that letter. It was a pleasant winter afternoon as I walked down the lonely road. It was 3 o'clock and I had walked a mile. So it was an afternoon in winter and it was 3 o'clock and she was walking. She was enjoying her walk. I found myself in a lane bordered by leafless trees, fields stretched on either side of the lane. So the lane she was walking on, it had two fields on the both sides and the trees were leafless and it was in winter. It was a peaceful and quiet retreat and I sat down on a stile to survey the beauty of the scene. So she sat down after walking a mile to enjoy the beauty of the nature and to enjoy her time. The silence was broken by the sound of a horse approaching, and I wondered if I were safe on the deserted spot. So she kind of lost herself in this beautiful nature, and suddenly she was startled by the sound of a horse, and she was wondering that am I safe in this deserted spot, as there was no one around her. As the horse and rider came near, a great black and white dog glided past. So when the horse and the rider came near, our dog went that way. A few minutes later, the horse stumbled on the ice and both horse and rider were thrown to the ground. So the horse and the rider, they both fell. I heard a muttered exclamation, "What the deuce am I to do now?" So the rider, the rider, he was saying that what game am I supposed to play now? So he was kind of, he was hurt as he fell, and he was also very feeling very troubled, and he was not liking this phenomena, this incident. So this is why he said that. I went up to the stranger and asked, "Are you injured, sir? Can I help?" So Jane went to that person, the rider who fell down, and she asked him that, "Can I help you? Are you injured?" "Please stand on one side," he replied, and limped to the stile. So the person said to her that, "Please stay on one side," and he sat on the stile. "Shall I fetch help?" I asked. So she again asked that, should she help him? "Thank you, but I do not need help. I have no bones broken." Then he said, "I do not need help from you as I am all good. My bones are not broken." He said and tried to rise to his feet. He groaned in pain as he did so. So he tried to rise depending on his feet, and then he groaned in pain. In the evening light, I saw that he was a well-built man of about 35. So, as it was already about to evening, and Jane could understand, seeing him, that he was a man of 35 years old. She could guess that. He had a dark face with stern features and a heavy brow. So he had a dark face and he had serious expressions on his face, and he had heavy brows. He was dressed in riding clothes, so he was wearing riding clothes. If the stranger had been handsome and had dressed me in gallant tones, I would soon have gone on my way, being unaccustomed to gallantry. So Jane was saying that it was nice that the man was kind of rude to me. So if he was not rude to me, if he was nice to me, I would be shocked. Okay, I'll not be feeling comfortable seeing a stranger being nice to me. However, the stranger's rough manners, instead of upsetting me, put me at ease. So, though he was being rough, he was showing rough manners to Jane, but it actually helped Jane feel comfortable with him. I hesitated to leave him alone at that hour in that solitary lane, as he could scarcely move unsupported. So Jane was not really, she was not intending to leave him in this deserted spot, as there was no one to help him and he was not able to walk on his own. He in turn thought that I should be on my way home as it was getting late. The man was thinking that Jane should go home as it was getting late. "Where do you come from?" he asked. "From Thornfield Hall, to which I shall be returning after I have run up to Hay to post a letter." So the man is asking Jane that from where have you come, and Jane is saying that I will return to Thornfield Hall. I live there after I post a letter at Hay. "You live at Thornfield Hall. Whose house is it?" So the man is asking that whose house do you live in? "Mr. Rochester's." "Do you know Mr. Rochester?" So Jane is saying that it is the residence of Mr. Rochester where she lives in, and the man is asking, "Do you know him?" "No, I have never seen him." Jane is saying that she never seen him. "You are not a servant at the hall, of course. You are." He stopped and looked at me puzzled. So the man is saying that, asking that you are not the servant of that place. So you are what? Jane is saying that I am the governess. "Oh yes, the governess. I had forgotten." So the man is saying that, "Oh, you are the governess. I forgot." He decided to mount his horse, but in order to reach the horse, he had to lay his hand on my shoulder and lean heavily on me and lean forward. So as he was unable to move on his own, he had to depend on Jane. He had to depend on Jane's shoulder and lean on, and then ride on the horse. He grimaced with pain as he sprang into the saddle and rode away with his dog Pilot. So he was kind of having pain because of this accident, and he ran away and he rode away with his dog. The image of the stranger remained in front of my eyes as I walked on to Hay. So as Jane was walking, she was kind of remembering the stranger in her mind. My errand completed, I started back for Thornfield. I prolonged my walk as I did not welcome the prospect of another dull evening in the house. So after posting the letter, she was kind of walking slowly. She prolonged her walk so that she reaches the house late, because she does not like to have a regular dull evening again. She wants some excitement, she wants change, she wants something new. She doesn't like the regular dull evening every day. That is why she prolonged her walk. On entering the hall, I heard the sound of cheerful voices in the dining hall. So when she entered the place, she heard cheerful voices in the dining hall. I could distinguish Adele's tones but could not see the rest of the company. So she could hear Adele's voice, but she could not recognize the other voice. A bright fire blazed in the hearth. I went in search of Mrs. Fairfax. There was a fire in her room, but she was not there. Instead, seated on her rug was a great black dog, which looked like the one I had met on the road. So she was looking for Fairfax, but she could not find her. Rather, she saw a dog which almost looked like the dog she met on the road with that stranger. I rang the bell. When Leah entered, I said, "Whose dog is this?" So when she rang the bell and the servant Leah came to open the door, and she asked that, "Whose dog is this?" It came with the master, Mr. Rochester, who has just arrived. He is with Adele and Mrs. Fairfax in the dining room. So Leah is saying that this dog came with their master, Mr. Rochester, who has arrived lately, and he is now with Adele and Mrs. Fairfax in the dining hall. He has just had an accident. His horse fell and his ankle is sprained. So Leah added that he had an accident and his ankle it got twisted. Did the horse fall in hay lane? I inquired. So she asked that does this accident happen in hay lane? Yes, coming downhill it slipped on some ice, replied Leah. So Leah said that it slipped on the ice at hay lane. Mrs. Fairfax entered to say that Mr. Carter, the surgeon, had arrived to attend to Mr. Rochester. So the master of Thornfield Hall, Mr. Edward Rochester, had returned. So Fairfax said that the surgeon had arrived to treat Mr. Rochester as he had an accident and his ankles got twisted. So now the master of this place, Thornfield Hall, Mr. Edward Rochester, had arrived finally. Mr. Rochester remained very busy the next day attending to business. His agent and some of his tenants came to meet him. So after coming, he got really busy with his works. Adele and I vacated the library so that Mr. Rochester could use it to conduct his business. So Adele and Jane, they made the library empty so that Mr. Rochester can use it for his business purpose. We moved to a room upstairs. There was a great change at Thornfield. The house hummed with activity as visitors came and went. So this place was very calm and quiet all the time. But now, after Mr. Rochester came to this place, it became very busy. It was a place of excitement, and there was activities going on as visitors were coming and going. And Adele was too excited to concentrate on her work and instead kept chattering about Mr. Rochester. So Adele was really excited that Mr. Rochester had returned to the place, and this was a great change at Thornfield Hall. In the evening, he sent word through Mrs. Fairfax that Adele and I were to have tea with him at 6 o'clock. So he kind of sent a news that Adele and Jane, he is expecting them to have tea at 6 o'clock with him. Is it necessary to change my dress? Yes, I always dress for the evening when Mr. Rochester is here. So Jane was wondering that should she change her dress for the evening snacks with Mr. Rochester. So Fairfax is saying that yes, I always change my dress when he's here. Following Mrs. Fairfax's advice, I wore my black silk dress and the only ornament I possessed, a pearl pin that Miss Temple had given me. So she followed Mrs. Fairfax's advice and she wore her black silk dress, and she had only one ornament, that was a pearl pin that she got from Mrs. Temple. She wore it. I followed Mrs. Fairfax into the dining room feeling rather nervous. In front of the fire lay the dog Pilot with Adelaide kneeling nearby. Mr. Rochester was reclining on a couch. So she went to the dining room with Adelaide, with Fairfax, and she was kind of nervous. And Mr. Rochester was laying on the couch. By the light of the fire which fell on his grim face, I recognized him as the traveller I had met. So, when she first met Mr. Rochester at Thornfield Hall, she could recognize that he was the person that he met at Hay Lane, and he was the stranger who had an accident. Here is Miss Eyre, sir, said Mrs. Fairfax. Let Miss Eyre be seated, said he again. So Mrs. Fairfax introduced Jane, saying that she is Miss Eyre, and he is saying that let her sit. Again, I was not upset by his abrupt manner. While I sat down and Mrs. Fairfax attended to the tea, Adelaide danced around him in excitement, demanding a present. So Jane was not really surprised seeing him showing rough manners, as she already knew that he is such kind of a person. And Adelaide was dancing around him, expecting gifts, and as she was very happy and excited. Did you expect a present, Miss Eyre? He asked unexpectedly. Do you like presents? So Mr. Rochester asked her that, do you like presents? Are you expecting presents? I don't know, sir, since I have hardly received any. They are generally considered to be pleasant things. So Jane is saying that I don't know, I have hardly got gifts and I think they are pleasant things. What do you think? He persisted. I shall require time to think it over, I replied. You have not been as simple as Adelaide to demand a present. Nevertheless, you deserve one for the work you have done with Adelaide. I am satisfied with the progress she has made. So, Mr. Rochester is saying that he wants to present her because he is satisfied with the progress Adelaide made under her guidance, and as she is not a child, so she will not ask a gift from him. So, like Adelaide, so now he's asking that what she wants to have as a present. Your words of praise for my work are the best present I could receive. So she is saying that your words, your praises, they are the present for me. He proceeded to question me in detail about the events of my life. When he realized that for 8 years I had led a sheltered existence at Lode, he exclaimed, no wonder you look as though you have come from another world. So, Mr. Rochester asked her about her previous life, about her events in her life. So she said that she was at Lode for 8 years before coming here, and when Mr. Rochester came to know that she was having shelter at Lode, then he's saying that this is why you seem to be someone from another world. When I met you last night, I was reminded of fairy tales and I wondered if you had bewitched my horse. I am not sure yet. So he's saying that when I met you last night for the first time, I was wondering that if you have enchanted me, if you are a witch. Mr. Rochester continued to ask me a number of questions about my family, about Lode. So Mr. Rochester kept asking about her family and her previous life at Lode. What did you learn at Lode? He asked me. Can you play the piano a little? So he is asking her that what have you learned at Lode? Can you play the piano? And she said yes. Going to the library, I mean, if you please. Pardon me, I'm used to giving commands. Sit down at the piano and play a tune. So Rochester is saying that go to the library and play the piano, and then he is saying that don't get offended because I am accustomed to command everybody, so I always talk in that kind of manner. So could you please play the piano going to the library? After a few minutes, he called out, enough, you play a little but not very well. So after a few minutes, he stopped her because it was not good enough. Return to the dining room, Mr. Rochester said, Adelaide showed me some of your sketches this morning. I would like to see them again as they were well done. So now he's saying that he saw some pictures made by Jane and he liked it. So he's asking that can you Can you do more? He scrutinized the pictures. Where did you get the ideas for these paintings? Then now he is asking that from where she got the ideas to make such kind of paintings. Out of my head, the same head I see now on your shoulders. Yes, sir. So Rochester is saying that is it the same head that gave you ideas to make such beautiful pictures? Mr. Jane said yes. Does it contain more ideas? Yes, sir, and better ones, I hope. So Rochester is saying that can you do more? Can your brain share more ideas to make more beautiful pictures? Jane said yes, and the ideas are better. He continued to talk of my paintings for some time. At 9 o'clock, he dismissed me abruptly. So they kept talking. They continued the conversation for a while about painting, and then at 9 o'clock, he ended the conversation all on a sudden. Why have you let Adele sit up so late, Miss Ira? Take her to bed. He said that why you are keeping Adele so late. She should go to bed now and please join her. He dismissed us with a wave of the hand he had wearied of our company. So as he got tired, so he dismissed this conversation with them. I wish you all good night, he said. So he wished them good night. When we reached Mrs. Fairfax's room, I remarked on the peculiarity of Mr. Rochester's manner. So when she was entering Mrs. Fairfax's room, she was wondering why he behaved such a way. I think he is very changeful and abrupt, I said. Do you think so? I have grown used to his ways, she said. One should make allowance for his manner. It is partly his nature and partly caused by painful thoughts, by family troubles. So Jane was kind of thinking and sharing with Mrs. Fairfax that she thinks that Mr. Rochester is weird. He behaves weirdly. So Mrs. Fairfax is saying that as you are new, this is why you are thinking so. But we are accustomed to his behavior, and he does this because not only because of his nature, but also because of his past, his painful past. But he has no family. Jane is saying that, but he doesn't have any family. Who hurt him? No, but he had. His elder brother, Mr. Rowland, died only 9 years ago. There was some misunderstanding between the two brothers. Mr. Rowland perhaps prejudiced their father against Mr. Edward. The family estate was left entirely to Mr. Rowland, and Mr. Edward was very bitter about it. When Mr. Rowland died, Mr. Edward inherited Thornfield. So now Mrs. Fairfax is sharing that he had a brother who died 9 years ago, and the brother influenced their father to give him the whole property, and the father listened to him and did the same. And this is why Rochester was angry at his brother, but at the end his brother eventually died. But he shuns the place and hardly stays here for more than a fortnight at a time. So though he got all the property after the death of his brother, but now he doesn't really live here for very long. At best he lives here for 15 days. Why does he shun it? I asked. Maybe because it's gloomy, was the evasive answer. So Jane is asking that why he doesn't live here as it's his own property. Mrs. Fairfax is saying that because the weather is very gloomy here. I felt that there was some mystery here, but did not ask further questions. So Jane could understand there is a mystery behind this behavior, but she did not continue it. I saw very little of Mr. Rochester during the following days, except in passing. He attended to business in the morning, in the afternoons, gentlemen from Millcote called or he rode out to visit him. So Jane actually saw Mr. Rochester as a very busy person when he was at Thornfield Hall, and he always saw that Mr. Rochester was attending visitors. He was talking about business with his partners, or he was kind of visiting others, or others were visiting him from Millcourt regarding their business. So he was always very busy when he was at Thornfield. When we met briefly, Mr. Rochester greeted me either amiably or distantly according to his mood. So whenever they met, Mr. Rochester, sometimes he was very nice to Jane and sometimes he was very indifferent towards Jane, it happened according to his mood. One evening, he sent for Adele and me. While Adele was examining the gift he gave her, he invited me to sit by the fire with him. He appeared to be in a genial mood. So one evening, he sent for Adele and Jane Eyre. Adele was busy examining the gifts she got from Rochester, and Jane was sitting by the fire to make a conversation with him. So here we are stopping. Goodbye.